to JP's Garage Show. Now guys, this is my first video, so please go ahead and hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment, and then share it with some friends and enjoy. Today we're going to be making this cool skateboard box. It's got a sliding lid with a magnet to slam it shut. Now there was a little bit of a crack on the side, but I tried my best to glue it up and I think it looks pretty good. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is peel the grip tape off of the board, and it works really well if you heat it up with a hair dryer first or a heat gun of some sort, and then just go ahead and peel that sucker off. Now you guys, all the tools that I'm using in this, as well as the finish and the magnets and everything, I have listed in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out. There's links to Amazon, so you can go pick up whatever you need. Now we're going to want to cut off the edges with the holes, both ends of the skateboard, because those holes aren't going to do us much good there, so we're going to use the meat of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the board in half as best I can, right down the middle. I'm using a bandsaw because it's all I've got, but if you have like a table saw, that would work great and you get cleaner cuts. Now we're going to cut the halves into about 3-inch squares. Now here are the cuts from that board, but I also had some other random skateboards lying around that I throw in there for some color, so we can get some red and greens in there as well as blue. Now we're going to take those chunks that we just cut and sand them down with the table sander. Get all the residue off from the glue and make them nice and flush, so when we glue them together, there's no pockets anywhere. Now I'm taping these suckers together so that I can drill a hole right through the center of them, because I'm going to use a wooden rod to kind of hold them together during the gluing so they don't start drifting around. Now you guys don't actually have to do that if you're following along. You can just kind of glue them together and put some pressure on them. And but this is just a extra measure so I could get it right. And as you see here, I'm putting the rod in, and I'm going to start sliding them on one by one with a layer of glue in between each chunk of wood. Now that I've got them all glued up, I'm going to take some clamps and clamp them shut, hold them together really nicely. As you can see, there's still some drift happening here, but you know, you can kind of even it out with your hand. And once the glue kind of dries a little bit, they'll generally stay in the same spot. So. Now you're going to want to let this glue dry overnight and get back to it in the morning. Now that we have this dry blank already, we're going to go ahead and cut off all the extra parts and try to square it up. Now, as you can see, one of the boards was a little bit cracked, as the nature of broken skateboards go. So I'm taping up one side and I'm sticking some glue. I figured it would look kind of cool if I add some food coloring and maybe get an interesting color of glue going. Never done this before, so this is a total experiment, but I thought it was pretty cool. Now that that side glue job has kind of dried up, we're going to go ahead and flatten it out and see if it worked. It works pretty good. There's still a little bit of a crack there, but we might be able to try another attempt later in the video. Now I'm taking the router and I'm rounding the edges of the block. You can see that there is some chip away at the top here, so I'm going to have to sand that down as well. So I've sanded the top and I'm going to round off the edges of the top as well. I'm just going to leave the bottom flat because that's the side it's going to sit on anyhow. Now I'm going to cut off the section that's going to be the lid. Now go ahead and sand down both sides to make them nice and flat. Now I'm cutting the lid at about a 30-degree angle because we're making a sliding box here, so the lid is going to slide right in, and we're going to have to glue these other pieces back to the base to kind of hold the lid in. Now we're going to cut this one down because this is where the magnet on the box is going to go, so that the magnet from the lid attaches to it. Now we're going to go ahead and sand them all nice and flush so that there's no issues with the sliding on the lid. Now we're going to go ahead and mark the center of the block so that we can drill a hole right through it. Now I used a Forstner bit to drill the hole out of this block, so I popped it on the bench press and started drilling. Both the Forstner bit and the bench press I actually got on Amazon. Again, those links are down in the description, so go check that out if you need something. So now I'm going to drill out a little tiny space for the magnet that I have in the lid, and I just kind of eyeballed it. I saw one that looked pretty close to the size of the magnet and fit it in there just right, and then I super glued it on and it worked great. Now you're going to want to do that same thing to the other side. This piece is going to be glued right onto the block, and that's what's going to be receiving the other lid magnet. The only thing you got to look out for is make sure that they're oriented right, because if they're put in there the wrong way, then they're just going to, push each other away rather than attract each other. So make sure you don't screw that part up. So now it's time to glue that sucker right on the blank there, and that's the piece with the magnet. And I just put it finger tight. I tried to clean up some of this glue here underneath because that's going to be hard to reach once all the other sides are on there. And then see if those sides are on the right spot, and then glue those suckers up. Now, as you can see on the side there, I have kind of another different patch job going on that crack. I tried something different to see if that would work, and basically just used wood filler in a different color. I think I used blue that time, so we'll see what that looks like. Alright, now that they're glued, let them dry overnight, and we're gonna hit the sander. Now this is going to be the little handle for the sliding lid. Initially it was just going to be flat, but I realized how difficult it was going to be to separate the lid from the box with that magnet in there, and I realized you need something to grip it, so cut off this little chunk and we're going to glue it to the top. Now I'm just going to round it out at the top with this disc sander. Now I'm drilling out a little hole for the dowel pin that's going to hold that little grip onto the lid here. Do the same on the grip. You're going to want to make sure it's on there nice and flat because I ended up having to sand it down a little bit to make it flush with the lid. Alright, clamp it up and let it dry overnight, and it's ready to roll. So we'll stick this back on the block, and then we're going to sand it all up. Started with 500 grit, and I moved up to 1000 grit. Get it nice and smooth. Now I'm going to lather it up with some Howard feed and wax, beeswax polish and finish. You can find this in the description. There's a link for Amazon, so go ahead and pick up a bottle. This stuff's awesome. So I'll go ahead and polish it up and get her nice and shiny. Call her good. Now, I appreciate you guys checking out the video. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe, leave a like, a comment, and share it with your friends. Remember, all the tools used here are listed in the description, so go ahead and pick up whatever you need. And I'm going to have new content for you guys soon. Thank you.